Can financial demand alone solve our growing resource problems? In this video, we explore the deep connections between energy, the economy, and the limits of our natural world. Let's dive into the reality behind our economic systems and why we can't ignore the physical constraints of our planet. Since 1965, global energy consumption has closely tracked economic growth, with an R2 value of 0.98 indicating a nearly perfect correlation. For example, in 2022, the world consumed around 162,000 terawatt-hours of energy, while the global GDP reached approximately $101 trillion. This highlights how integral energy is to the economy, much like food is to human survival. The economy functions as a dissipative structure, requiring constant energy input to maintain and grow. The global economy consumes approximately 173,000 terawatt-hours of energy annually. This energy is sourced from various forms: fossil fuels, about 84%, nuclear, 10%, and renewables, 6%. Just as a hurricane dissipates energy and grows in intensity, our economic system relies on energy to expand and support its complex structures. Human adaptation to cooked food, beginning around 800,000 years ago, allowed our species to grow rapidly and dominate other animals. This mastery of fire was a crucial energy innovation, significantly boosting caloric intake and brain development. However, history is replete with examples of civilizations that expanded until they exceeded local resource limits, such as the deforestation and eventual collapse of the Easter Island society. Financial systems create demand through mechanisms like debt, which has ballooned to over $300 trillion globally, approximately 350% of global GDP. Debt fuels investment and consumption, such as China's Belt and Road Initiative, which involves over $1 trillion in infrastructure investments. However, this system relies on continuous economic growth to remain sustainable, making it vulnerable to any slowdown in growth. Many economic models assume indefinite growth, ignoring the finite nature of resources. For instance, the limits to growth model from the 1970s projected a downturn in resource availability around this time, due to the exponential growth in consumption versus the finite nature of resources. Despite advancements in technology and efficiency, new oil discoveries peaked in the 1960s, and we now find less oil each year than we consume. Politicians and media often focus on financial metrics like GDP and debt, sidelining discussions on physical limits. For example, headlines often celebrate stock market highs and GDP growth while neglecting the underlying issues of resource depletion and environmental degradation. This narrative fosters a false sense of security, as seen during the housing bubble of the 2000s, where financial gains masked underlying economic fragility. The affordability of energy is critical for economic stability. For instance, oil prices spiked to over $140 per barrel in 2008, leading to a global economic slowdown. The price hike strained household budgets and business costs, causing a reduction in consumer spending and business investments. This cycle of price volatility demonstrates the delicate balance needed to sustain both supply and demand in the energy markets. While the push to reduce CO2 emissions is crucial, the reality is that fossil fuels still account for over 80% of the global energy mix. Efforts like the Paris Agreement aim to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, necessitating a rapid transition to renewable energy. However, this transition is challenging as it requires substantial investments. Estimates suggest that transitioning to a low-carbon economy could cost up to $4 trillion per year by 2030. The pace of change is uneven, with developing nations facing significant hurdles in reducing their reliance on coal and oil. We are nearing the extraction limits of key resources. For example, the world's largest oil fields, like Khawar in Saudi Arabia, have been producing for decades and are now experiencing declining yields. The Energy Information Administration estimates that without new discoveries, global oil production could decline by 3 to 4% per year. This plateau suggests we are entering a period of constrained growth, where energy supply limitations could hinder economic development. Increased complexity, such as the integration of advanced technology and global supply chains, often leads to higher resource demand. The recent semiconductor shortage, driven by disruptions in supply chains during the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighted the fragility of our complex global economy. Furthermore, complexity exacerbates income disparities, with the top 1% of earners holding more wealth than the bottom 50%. This growing inequality can lead to social unrest and political instability, as seen in the widespread protests over economic inequality in recent years. Resource scarcity often leads to internal and external conflicts. The South China Sea, for instance, is a hotspot for geopolitical tension due to its rich oil and gas reserves. Similarly, water scarcity is a growing issue, with countries like India and Pakistan facing potential conflicts over shared rivers. As resources become more scarce, the competition for these resources intensifies, increasing the risk of conflict and instability. As growth slows, financial systems become increasingly unstable. The 2008 financial crisis was partly triggered by unsustainable levels of debt and over-leveraging in the housing market. Today, with global debt at record levels, similar risks loom. For instance, in 2020, global corporate debt reached $75 trillion, a 56% increase since 2010. If economic growth falters, the burden of this debt could lead to widespread defaults, triggering another financial crisis. The challenges we face require a fundamental rethinking of our economic and resource management strategies. While financial demand plays a crucial role in our economy, it cannot alone overcome the physical limits of our planet. We must acknowledge these limits and work toward sustainable solutions that balance economic growth with the preservation of our natural resources. Only then can we hope to build a resilient and equitable future. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the global economy and resource challenges. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.